Good. All right, so we are on lesson number 6, entitled All Men Hate the Wretched. So last week, we talked about, or I asked you to flesh out the question on what do we think is the difference, or is there a difference in the word accountability and responsibility? So any thoughts on that? The difference between accountability and responsibility? Yeah, Caden.
Accountability would be the ability to take account for something you've done, whether it's good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
And responsibility is something you have to do.
Yeah, I
So
think
it's more like future and present.
Yeah, I think that was pretty well said. Does anyone want to offer it maybe in a different way? What Caden was saying is, yeah, we can break down the word, right? The ability to give account, to give an account, right? Which is kind of, that's more focused on a telling, right? If I'm being accountable to someone, I'm giving you kind of the reasons maybe why I did things a certain way, or I'm telling you this is what happened, so I'm giving you an account, right? It's like you can think of it in terms as well of like financial, right? Like you have a bank account, like hopefully you're bringing in more money than you're putting out, right? You don't want to be bankrupt. Well, in the same way, relationally, right, when we give account to one another, we want to be building up truth, honesty, and so when we're giving account, we're giving a good report. But a lot of times what we think of in terms of accountability is when I've done something wrong, then I'm holding myself to a certain account. Hattie, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
had mine's little.
Yeah, sure.
Might be wrong, but
No, go ahead.
I think responsibility is something maybe you don't have a choice to do. I mean, yeah, something you don't have a choice to do. Like if you have a job, you're responsible for showing up to work whenever
Good.
you work. And accountability.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard for me to say accountability. I mean the thing, but is maybe something you do have more of a choice, and that you're more choosing to do it.
Yeah. I think in this light what you're saying, and it is really at the heart of it, when it comes to responsibility, you're kind of forced to do something with it. See, accountability, you can either choose to be accountable or not, but responsibility doesn't leave you an option, right? Responsibility is the ability to respond, which means we can say no. To use your point, like at a job, you have the ability to say no. I'm not gonna do that. And what is the outcome of that, generally speaking?
You get fired.
You get fired, right? And so that wouldn't be a very responsible thing to do in one sense, but you are responding, you are taking an action or an initiative there, right? And so, yeah, I would say a lot of people, we will muddle these things together. And so when we come to a place or a season or a time when we've made an error in judgment. So we've either done something wrong, we've said something wrong, we've offended somebody, or because of our inaction, we didn't do anything, which we see in Victor's case here, right? There's a couple of different things Victor needs to be held accountable to, and Victor needs to become responsible for, right? Accountability is kind of, he's telling us the story of this is what happened. He's giving an account. But is Victor taking any real true responsibility? Has he taken responsibility for the creature? And has he taken any real responsibility for the death of Justine? This is how it starts in the first chapter of volume 2. It says, "Nothing is more painful to the human mind than, after the feelings have been worked up by a quick succession of events, the dead calmness of inaction and certainty which follows and deprives the soul of both hope and fear. Justine died. She rested, and I was alive." Does this sound like a man who has taken responsibility? No, it seems to me a man who's taking accountability. He's saying this is what's happened, but he's consuming himself still with this concept of What is going on in his soul, in his inner man, in the struggles that are happening there? And so maybe there's some internalization here. He's really wrestling with things, but the author doesn't really offer us much outside of, him pointing to the fact that all of these emotions were worked up, right? All of this energy, right? This big thing culminated, right? In this creation. And then these bad things happened, and then there was this dead calmness of inaction. Almost like a paralysis. Like, well, what do I do now? My brother is dead, and Justine is dead. You guys have read this, right? What should Victor do at this point? Yeah, and what do you take responsibility. What does that look like? What do you think responsibility would look like in this case?
Say telling people about his creation, like even just at least his family and his father, and be like, I think this is what happened.
Yeah, at some point, right? At some point, he's got to, if things are going to get better, right, for him, he's got to take some responsibility and give account and take action to what he has created. But more than that, Victor has a responsibility towards whom?
The monster.
To the monster. You say the monster. Would you consider him to be the monster?
Who, sorry? Who to the monster?
You use the term monster. Who are you referring to?
The creation.
The creation. Yeah, and so I'm bringing that up to be very precise in how we view that, the creation, right? Because the book talks in three different ways. We'll say the creature, the monster, or the demon. It's pronounced in the Old English daemon, demon. Right? And so we have three different ways we can look at it, right? We could say one is it's a creature. And so that's not quite a man. We've kind of still robbed that of humanity. We could say the monster, and that puts it a little bit more further into the realm of negative. There's not any humanity there, and kind of it's not a creature because birds are creatures and deer are creatures. But a monster is now something that has intent. But a demon, that's kind of we've now compartmented it into something that cannot be redeemed, right? Those are three different ways that the author is going to force our hand in understanding whom the person is talking about, that thing that is created. But what do we know to be true is that any creator, anyone who is a creator, is responsible for that which they create. But is the creator accountable to the creation? I would say no. In one sense, maybe yes, but I would say generally no. God, who is our creator, can tell us his story, but he doesn't have to prove himself to us. He doesn't have to measure up to us. He doesn't have to give an account so that we can approve it. But the Father would say he is responsible for us. Now that's important because God is, in the Bible, God is used in one term. It says God is what?
Good.
Good, yeah. But more specifically, very specifically, the Bible says that God is love. And so in the economy of God's creation over all of mankind, his heart towards his creation is an act of love. The Bible talks about this in the book of Genesis, the book of beginnings. We see Genesis 1:1. God created the heavens and the earth. Right? That was an act of love. But why did God create the heavens and the earth? Remember, it talks about how things were void, without form, right? There was darkness, there was light was created. So all of this was kind of building structure. God was creating structure. But what was the last thing he creates before he rests? It was building towards something, right? So what was the purpose of building the heavens and the earth? What was the purpose of making night and day? What was the purpose of fish in the sea and birds in the field? What was the significance of rivers and mountains and all of that? What was the purpose of it? See, all of that is backdrop and setting. But God communicated clearly the purpose of his love in creation is for all things, but primarily for you and I. Because in Genesis it'll say this, let us make man, let us make him in our image and likeness. Now this is important. This is important as we consider the creature and Victor, the creator. Because creatures, in proper context and relationship to creators, should reflect what? The image and the likeness of that which has created them. And so when we say things like monster or demon, what is that a reflection? Who is that a reflection on?
That's really scary.
Well, think about it. Yeah, it is scary. Who is that a reflection on? It's a reflection on Victor, is it not? I mean, when we use the term monster or demon in here, don't we have to kind of, again, don't we have to kind of see Victor need to give some account for his actions and his choices and what is happening? And aren't you wanting to see some level, I mean, I don't know, maybe you don't. Does anyone else besides me want to see Victor be fully responsible for what he's done? Like it's almost part of the struggle, is it not? Maybe Hannah, this is a question for you because I know this is kind of working through this darker thing. Isn't it kind of like, don't you feel like there might be a little bit more release if he just owns it and takes responsibility? Like that would make some of the events, like it wouldn't make the events themselves any easier, right? Because people have died, but knowing, it's almost like we're invited into the secret that we have to hold. This is the tension that's built up, right? Like, just tell someone already. Just own it. But let's revisit that again in the context of our lives. Because again, good literature is not meant to just say, oh, that's an interesting piece of information. No. It's let us come to grips with in our own hearts, in our own lives. Why do we stay stuck in places? And we don't really even want accountability, but we certainly don't want to be responsible. We certainly don't want to do the thing that we should. It's way easier in our responsibility to kind of do like Hattie was saying, to make a choice to kind of like whatever we feel like doing. But no, there's a responsibility that the Creator has for the creation. But then that means in turn that what? The creation is accountable to and responsible for that which the Creator gives them. Right? And so in this economy, right, if God has given you life, and He has, the Bible clearly says that, then you are responsible to do what? Are you responsible to live life for yourself? Should you live life for yourself? Who should you live life for? It's not a trick question.
No.
For God. There's an analogy. I really love this analogy. I'll read it to you real quick. It says this: when God wanted to create fish, He spoke to the sea. When God wanted to create trees, He spoke to the earth. But when God wanted to create man, He turned to Himself. Then God said, let us make man in our image and our likeness. If you take a fish out of water, it will die. And when you remove a tree from soil, it will also die. Likewise, when man is disconnected from God, he dies. God is our natural environment. We were created to live in His presence. We have to be connected to Him because it is only in Him that life exists. Let us stay connected to God. Now, I will take this analogy further. You are very particularly fashioned a very certain way to be planted in God, and that is through the seed of sonship. You are sons of God. That is an important distinction. And so we're not thinking of the Creator as God like this, kind of nebulous general idea or concept, because a lot of people believe in God, But when we think of God, we think of a loving, caring Father. Now again, this relational context is really, really critical. So a little further down here, we see that again, Victor is struggling with what's going on in his mind. It says this state of mind preyed upon my health, which had perhaps never entirely recovered from the first shock it had sustained. I shunned the face of man. Now, if this was the problem to begin with, right? When he was creating the creature, he had put aside all relational context to pursue the thing that he was for. He said, I shunned the face of man. All sound of joy or complacency was torture to me. Solitude was my only consolation. Deep, dark, death-like solitude. You see, what the author is again forcing us to deal with emotionally here is the full weight of Victor's experience. Basically, we would say this in the modern understanding, he's having a pity party. He's wallowing in self-pity. So he's going to remove himself from everyone and he is going to be just the drama coming out. Like inconsolable, like I can't even deal with the world right now because nothing is going my way. He has every ability to respond correctly. Every ability to do the thing that will bring hope, that will bring some stability back to his life and to the lives of others. And he chooses not to. And then, as we've talked about a little bit, what happens in these chapters that is going to force his hand one way or another? He meets his creation. And now the book kind of it has kind of built to this point, right, where there is a face-off and a showdown here between creator and creation. Let's flip over to would be the second chapter of the second volume, which would be what, chapter 10? For those of you who don't have the same books, chapter 10, and we are about halfway through. Let me flip back a little. On page 96. So we're going to go to the end of chapter 1 in that really quickly, sorry. It says this. Alas, Victor, when falsehood can look so like the truth, who can assure themselves of certain happiness? And so this is an important theme, and we'll kind of touch on this really quick. When falsehood, when lie is perceived to be truth, that creates problems, right? And this is something that in Victor's life is kind of beginning to take over, right? Is he living a life of truthfulness, honesty, responsibility, accountability, or is he living a lie? Yeah, he's living a lie, but he's deceived himself to believe where he is at is good and right, and that he's somehow justified in his actions. Okay, wanted to just put that in real quick. So chapter 2 now, chapter 10. We'll go about halfway through. We're going to see what the demon here, daemon, it says, responses. It's page 102. It's about halfway down. It starts with, I expected this reception. And so this is after Victor says, devil, I exclaimed, do you dare approach me? So does this sound like a loving creator? No. Devil, how dare you approach me? We're really clearly seeing what's inside the heart of Victor. But if Victor has created something, it's created in what? His image and likeness. And so what will likely be the reception from that creature? If your father's response was to call you devil, that would communicate a great deal to you. This is the creature's response. I expected this reception, said the demon. All men hate the wretched. Now see, he's identifying with the way that not necessarily he feels at himself, although that's certainly true, but he's reflecting back to Victor that which Victor has said about him, that he is just wretched and miserable, all of those things. He's reflecting the identity that was given to him. How then must I be hated, who am miserable beyond all living things? Yet you, my Creator, detest and spurn me, thy creature, to whom thou art bound by ties only dissoluble by the annihilation of one of us. So the creatures even come to this place where he understands that basically because of the way that Victor is relating to him, one of them must come to an end in order to resolve the problem. See, we see the creature in some form or fashion is trying to take some responsibility, some action towards, like, something has to happen here. He's kind of trying to force Victor's hand here. You purpose to kill me. How dare you sport thus with life? So the creature here is instructing the Creator. And that's not the proper order of things, right? But because the Creator has not been responsible, the creature is craving and calling out for justice. Do your duty towards me, and I will do mine towards you and the rest of mankind. We see here, right, that the creature is saying, like, listen, just do the responsible thing. Give me what I deserve by merely being created by you. And I will then, in kind, in that love, in the care, in the concern that you're demonstrating for me, respond back to you and everyone else. The Bible says it this way: we love God because he first loved us. We respond back to love when we understand the fullness of God's love for us. And this is an increasing thing in our lives, hopefully, is that we cultivate hearts that are more and more open to the understanding of the love of God, which then empowers us to be more and more loving, first back to God, and then secondly back to everyone else. And so you show me, and I say this in my own life or anyone's life, areas where we have harmed other people. It's really rooted in the fact that we haven't fully grasped and understood God's love for us and reflected it back to him and reflected it to others. So we're in need of kind of this going back to the Creator to resolve, to be responsible, to be held accountable. If you will comply with my conditions, I will leave them and you at peace. But if you refuse, I will glut the maw of death until it be satiated with the blood of your remaining friends. And so, there's an ultimatum that comes. If you just do what your duty is, we can go along peaceably. But if you don't, you will regret it. I will make sure that you will feel the full weight of wrath. It continues next page, page 103 out of the top. O Frankenstein, be not equitable to every other, and trample upon me alone. So this is the creature's like, you're kind and loving to these other people, but why am I the outcast here? What have I done? And let's ask that question. What has the creature done? What has he done? Yeah.
Well, when Victor ran away from him at the beginning, he didn't do anything.
Right.
He just came to life.
Yeah.
But then later he did kill William. So.
He did. Right? So doesn't the creature also bear the full weight of responsibility? Yeah, and the creature is not taking responsibility for William's death. He's promising more harm. But is that because the creature is in a vacuum, isolated and apart and making his own decisions? Or is this a reflective action? The creature is a mirror to Victor. Yeah, go ahead.
I was thinking about that, and I don't know if it's the monster's fault because he wasn't taught by Luke. He wasn't taught, so.
Okay. So let's flesh that out.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. In the real world,
Mhm.
let's say a kid grows up and they were never taught any better. Like they didn't read the Ten Commandments, thou shalt not kill, but they go out and murder someone. Is that person still responsible? Yeah. We're all, yeah, absolutely. I'm not going to say here. The creature here is absolutely, the creature has to be responsible for his actions. What I'm saying is, and I want to point out to you is why does the creature act that way? Because the Creator, meant to be his Father, has done what? Usurped the responsibility of that role of being loving Creator. Now, again, why I'm highlighting this for us because we don't have that experience. Many people in the world struggle because they haven't really truly understood properly God's heart as a father. And even people within the context of the church. And some of us, and I know as my generation will attest to, the revelation of sonship, of understanding really sonship, reorients things in a much different way. Right? Where before I might have had the mindset of I'm saved by God. And that's a pretty good thing. Like it's somebody who came and rescued me from a burning building, like a fireman. I'd be really grateful to that person. But that's different than, it should be different than the person who has given me life and who had lovingly taken care of me all of my life. Right? I should appreciate both. But there's a different depth to it. And so what Victor and the creature offer for us is kind of really a vision of fallen mankind. The reason why you and I struggle is because our earthly fathers have struggled and have failed to live up to the standard of God. I will say, as a father who loves his kids, I have in my life failed my children because I have not met the standard of God. Now, praise God that my children are forgiving and that God, in His love, is teaching me to become a better father, a father that is created in His image. And that, by the way, that takes place by me not trying to figure out or map out in my brain, how do I be a better father? It's by becoming a good son in my relationship to Him. As I take on that mantle of sonship, I'm able to live that out, right? It's the creator-creation relationship there. O Frankenstein, be not equitable to every other and trample upon me alone, to whom thy justice and even thy clemency and affection is most due. Remember that I am thy creature. I ought to be thy Adam, but I am rather the fallen angel whom thou drivest from joy for no misdeed. Now, this plays into Milton, and to understand this, you have to understand Milton's Paradise Lost. Sadly, in Milton's Paradise Lost, Lucifer, who becomes Satan, is kind of a sympathetic character. He's kind of the outcast and shunned. But what do we know biblically is true? And what he's saying here is, I should be Adam to you. I should be your beloved creation. And not like, he says here that the fallen angel didn't deserve it. We know he absolutely deserved to be cast out. But he's trying to identify with, don't treat me like something that should be outcast and not something that should be loved. Everywhere I see bliss, from which I alone am irrevocably excluded. I was benevolent and good. Misery made me a fiend. See, this is where that argument of what happened to him, is he still responsible? Yeah, it was misery, right? Suffering, aloneness, abandonment, rejection, denial that led the creature to his actions. But the creature had a choice. Was he taught that? No, he wasn't taught. Should he have been? Yeah. Victor needs to take responsibility. And even now, even in this confrontation, we are waiting, are we not, for Victor to somehow own his responsibility. Make me happy, and I shall again be virtuous. And here's the response. Does this sound like somebody who has taken responsibility? Begone. I will not hear you. There can be no community between you and me. We are enemies. when we started our discussion a few weeks ago, we talked about one of man's greatest needs, outside of the basic foundational needs, is for love and belonging. We see that Victor has struggled, and bad things have happened as a result of Victor's lack of accountability and responsibility. But we're finally presented with kind of almost, it seems like, the last opportunity here for Victor to really, really, really make the hard choice of swallowing his own pride and taking some level of blame, responsibility, accountability. And he doesn't. And so the chapter ends here. It says, "But I consented to listen and seated myself by the fire which my odious companion had lighted. He thus began his tale." It ends with at least Victor being willing to hear from the creature what actually led up to that event. And we'll leave it here this week. We're going to read the next 3 chapters, 3, 4, and 5. And I want you to ask this question, and I would really encourage you to dialogue this with parents. Why are relationships important? Right? The creature here was given life by Victor. And he even came and said to Victor, pleading for him, "Do what is right to me, and I will be virtuous once again." And Victor rejected him and said, "I will have no community." Let's think in terms of, when I say the word relationships, let's think in terms of community. And I don't mean general, I mean specific. This community. And when I say community, what I mean by that is those whom God has placed in your life. Why are those relationships, the ones appointed by God, why are they important? And we will end it there, and we will pick up next week. Thank you. Yep.